वेलकम टू वी लर्न। वी लर्न में आपका स्वागत है। We are discussing marketing research, questionnaire design and development. Topics covered are introduction, questionnaire, format and administration, steps involved in designing a questionnaire, constructing a questionnaire, management of fieldwork, coding and tabulation. An introduction. Questionnaire is basically one of the most common used method while collecting any kind of information among all the methods which are used in communication. We also use all kinds of questionnaires, let it be structured or unstructured, in every marketing research. Now there are sample questionnaires which we have also included to make you people familiarize with the structure and design of the questionnaire. Then questionnaire, format and administration. A questionnaire, when we talk about in any kind of marketing research activity, it is a standardized format while collecting any data, and it is very normally used where there are large populations and where the data is to be collected on their awareness, their attitudes, opinions or their past and present behaviors. While there is no standard procedure to construct a questionnaire, but the problem or the situation and experience of the researcher greatly influence the process. Now the respondent may be asked without any formal questionnaire or any pre-planned questionnaire, but there could be number of variations in the use of questionnaire method, and they could also vary in the terms of their format and also in the way they are administered. When we talk about questionnaire format, they to a very great extent depend upon the amount of structure and the disguise required during the data collection. When we talk about structure, and while at the time of framing of questionnaire, the researcher or the investigator, he is required to determine the degree of the structure that needs to be imposed on the questionnaire. Alright. When we talk about a highly structured questionnaire, it is a type of a questionnaire where questions which are asked and the responses which are permitted, they are very explicitly pre-specified. On the other hand, if we talk about non-structured questionnaire, the questions which are asked, they are kept very flexible in terms of the words, and also the respondents, they are allowed freely to answer the question as and when they like. So the response pattern, they may vary from open-ended to close-ended. And when we talk about open-ended questions, here the respondent is basically free and he has the flexibility to choose the possible response. Whereas in case of a close-ended questionnaire, close-ended question, here the researcher, he has specified various options, and from among all the options, the respondent is required to choose the best possible option that describes his qualities. Then come disguised questionnaires. It is basically a type of question where the purpose is not made known to the respondent, and these are the questions which are asked in a very indirect manner. On the other hand, if we talk about non-disguised questions, they are kind of questions which are direct in nature, and the purpose of which is very much known clearly to the respondent. Now, disguised questions, they are basically used in conditions where the issues are such that there is a likelihood that the respondent may not give the right or the correct answers to the direct questions. Now, on the basis of all this, now the questionnaires could be classified as a structured questionnaire, the questions which are asked in a very structured manner, in which the responses, the questions, they are permitted, and non-disguised questionnaire, where the purpose is not hidden. The second type of questionnaires could be structured and disguised, where the responses are explicitly pre-specified but the purpose is hidden. Another is non-structured and non-disguised questionnaire, where it is not structured, where the questions to be asked, they are kept flexible, coupled with the purpose is very much disclosed to the respondent. Then comes non-structured and disguised. So the questions are very open-ended, they are very flexible, and the purpose is hidden. They account for non-structured questionnaire. So when we talk about structured and non-disguised questionnaire, they are very popular in many of the marketing research activities, and they are also applicable where there are large sample sizes. Whereas non-structured and non-disguised questionnaire, they are used where a free hand is to be provided to the respondents, and so that the in-depth information could be solicited. When we talk about non-structured and disguised questionnaire, they are basically a tool in motivational research or word association test or thematic appreciation test. When we talk about structured disguised questionnaire, when we talk about, they are very appropriate where responses towards certain sensitive issues like AIDS patients, issues like AIDS patients or abortions or sex determination of an unborn child. So these are the questions, these are the formats that are being used. Another is questionnaire administrations. The questionnaire method, when we talk about, they also vary depending upon the way it is administered. So they could be broadly classified into first personal interview. Personal interview वहाँ होगा where there is a face-to-face interaction between the investigator and the respondent, between the interviewer and the respondent. दूसरा कैटेगरी है वो है टेलीफोन सर्वे की, एंड दिस इज कंडक्टेड जहाँ पे पर्सनल इंटरव्यू की पॉसिबिलिटी ना हो, एंड दीज आर द टाइप ऑफ इंटरव्यूज विच हैपन ओवर द फोन, and it has only a voice contact. And lastly is the mail survey. When we talk about mail survey, these are basically conducted through mail, through mailers, and there is no possibility of an interviewer to exist. When we talk about the various steps which are involved in designing a questionnaire, the very first step is of preliminary decision. When we say preliminary decision, here what information is to be assessed, that is sought through various scanning of secondary sources of data. Once that information is sought out, then the next process is to determine who would be the target respondent, who would be the target size and target sample size. The next step after this comes deciding on the type of questionnaire and the method of administration. Once a sample, once a target audience and the respondents, they are determined, the next step comes on deciding, on making decisions regarding which type of questionnaire is to be used and what could be the method of the administration of the questionnaire. Once this is done, then the next step is the evaluation of question content. And the evaluation of question content, basically it helps in examining what question is really actually very essential. The respondents can understand the question, whether it is too technical or very ambiguous, or is it very advanced for the target audience. So the question needs to be assessed. The third possibility while assessing a question is, or evaluating a question, is whether the respondent, whether they could answer the question or not. Then whether the question will answer the respondent, whether they will answer the question. The first possibility is whether they have the ability to answer the question, and there is a possibility that they will or they will not answer the question. The fourth step is of checking the question phrase. Now when we talk about checking the question phrase, here they check about the ambiguity in the meaning of the words. They check whether there is any implied alternatives in the questions or not, or are there some kind of assumptions which are to be made to answer the question. Then comes the fifth step, which is of determine the form of response to each question. Now the response format, it could be either open-ended or close-ended. So in generally when we talk about the type of response format, it would depend to a great extent on the objective of the research or the nature of data which is to be collected, and therefore the analysis that needs to be performed. The sixth step is basically determine the sequence of question. And while determining the sequence, it is very essential to understand that simple and interesting question should be the opening question. Then care should be taken in designing branching questions with care. And the question needs to be put in a very logical sequence and a logical manner. Then ask for any classificatory data, and that too comes towards the end of the questionnaire. The seventh step is basically of assessing the physical layout of the questionnaire. And here the questionnaire, it must be printed properly and in a very elegant font and facilitated handling. The last step is of pre-testing the questionnaire, and it is a very normal practice to pre-test a questionnaire on a small number of target respondents. Now it is done to assess both the individual question and their sequence of response patterns. Now constructing a questionnaire, for example, there are information which needs to be sought out while constructing a questionnaire. One is the marketing problem. When we talk about marketing problem, this could be elaborated with the help of an example. So when we talk about a tire manufacturing company where it is planning to launch a new tire for their two-wheelers, here in this particular regard, the company would like to have information about the consumers to select a brand of tires for such vehicles. So it's marketing problem. The second is marketing research objectives. Now when we talk about marketing research objective, to estimate the prevailing level of brand awareness among consumers and to what degree are the consumer able to differentiate between company name and brand name. The second objective could be is to identify the attributes which are considered very important to consumer. This could be one of the objectives, and further the objective could be to study the buying behavior and the buying processes of the consumer. The last is the information requirement. So when we talk about information requirement, It accounts for top of the mind awarenesses about various products that are available, or the information could be about the consumer's perception of brand and what importance do they attach to the brand names. The information required could be the extent to which the consumer think the attributes or the company trade name or they have there in mind. There could be a possibility of information requirement about the degree of importance which a consumer attached to the attributes and about the buying processes which are involved in purchasing or selecting a particular product and the consumer attitudes towards retrading. So these are the various possibilities while constructing a questionnaire that an investigator or a market researcher should always keep in mind. Now this is a sample questionnaire which is designed to just assess the information sought out regarding a new launch of a scooter or motorcycle's tire. So it is designed in a very structured manner. A simple question is asked at the very beginning, at the outset of the questionnaire, which two-wheeler is owned by an individual, a scooter or a motorcycle, that needs to be ticked. What is the make of your scooter and motorcycle, the year in which it was made? Which tires are you using on your two-wheelers at present? So the name of the company is to be mentioned here. Then comes management of field work. When we talk about management of field work, in any kind of marketing research study, they require data collection to have the maximum utilization that it provides to the interviewer. So most of the marketing research study, they basically involve a lot of tours, and also the inherent quality of an interviewer should be he must be of good health because it needs extensive field work. Secondly, the interviewer should have a very pleasing personality. Then, considering the nature of Indian market, the interviewer, the market researcher, the investigator, whosoever he is, he should have a very good command over the local language and to the regional languages to some extent. And lastly, the interviewer must be able to freely communicate with the respondents. Now, before the interviewer he is sent out for data collection, he must be thoroughly briefed about the project because he is becoming the face of the company. So he should know about the project and in which the data is to be collected. It is also very essential to continuously supervise the progress of the work. Now at times what happens, it becomes very necessary to visit the field without giving an intimation to the interviewer in order to check whether he is doing his task and he is following the instructions properly or not. Then is the coding and tabulation when we talk about. Coding is basically a technical name which is used to categorize the data that has been collected. Now it involves a lot of alternative categories or classes into which the responses are basically placed and then they are assigned code numbers. Now in fact, when we talk about coding the closed-ended question, it becomes very simple. And depending on the response pattern, one is able to design the various codes for different responses. In case of open-ended question, they are however a little difficult to code them because there are no uniform rules that exist there. Now tabulation, when we talk about, it simply is basically counting the number of cases that falls into various categories. It may take the form of simple or cross tabulations. Now one may also apply various statistical tools like mean, median, mode or standard deviations to condense and interpret the data. Alright. The other description is like histogram could be used. So histogram is a form of bar chart where values of the variables, they are placed on the x-axis and the frequency is placed on the y-axis. There is frequency polygon. Here figures which are obtained from the histogram by joining the midpoints of the bars of the histogram with a straight line. Right. Now there are two exercises that needs to be done. What is meant by a questionnaire and what sort of marketing information can be collected with the help of questionnaire. Thank you and have a nice day. Keep learning and relearning.